In her expansive office at the Nigerian Ministry of Transportation in Abuja, Mrs. Magdalene Ajani oozed executive radiance from well-made local attire. But our interview with her took us down memory lane that showed she had not always had it so good.
I sold bread and akamu on the street of Maiduguri, and in the mornings before going to school, and then in the afternoon after having a good meal in my mother's restaurant, you will do your homework. Mom will supervise you to do your homework. Then from that time till you close the shop and go home to sleep, you are going to be doing the job of serving people food in that canteen.
She is currently the permanent secretary of the ministry. From her birthplace in Agbo, in Nigeria's Delta State, to Maiduguri in the north, where she was brought up, Mrs. Ajani lived a life essentially shaped up by her grade 2 certificate level father, who got into the military for survival, as she put it. Need did not deter the search for God in the family.
No, you know, for the Catholics, you're even baptized as a baby. You're baptized as a baby. But what I clearly remember is that every Sunday we had to go to church with my father, and there is this baptism for Holy Communion, to receive Holy Communion. So as soon as you sort of know yourself, you can speak. Your parents want to make sure that you pray your rosary as many times as possible, participate in the family praying group and all that. So they start preparing you for the Holy Communion.
Well, the point is that Mrs. Ajani took that early Christian tutelage as a mantra for reinforcing attitude towards latter-day experiences. She captures the essence of bringing up a child in the ways of God.
The thing about religion is that once it's there, it's there.
They are not just there. She speaks about how religious instruction takes one into and through life.
So those were quite thrilling times for us in terms of religious achievement. They were very important in my family, and I think those things have guided my life.
One thing is to prepare an individual for life. Another is for such an individual to deploy the tools which they have acquired to make them relevant and effective. In the case of Mrs. Ajani, the instructions were perhaps scarily down to earth.
I remember my mom telling us over and over, don't let anybody touch your pants, it's your private part, don't let anybody take you to a corner and all that. You know, and as children growing up, you know, you see people doing things in school, you know, and you begin to tell yourself that, mom said this shouldn't happen, you know. So it's kept on like putting me on my guard.
Mrs. Ajani, who trained as a medical doctor specializing in ophthalmology, had her moral instruction in early life tried out as a hospital administrator. She supervised the supply of equipment and somebody tried to bribe her.
I remember somebody walking into my office at close of work, which was a bit unusual. And I called my secretary. I said, I'm sitting back to work quietly. Why will I be getting a visitor after 4 p.m.? And she said, well, he insisted he needed to see you and I couldn't stop him. And by the time I entered a conversation with the man, I realized he was a contractor who was meant to be supplying some equipment to our institution. And it was a huge supply of equipment, you know, to the institution. And here he is with a brown envelope offering me some money. And I'm like, have you done your supplies? Why are you coming with a brown envelope? And he said, you know, this is how things are done.
Having been raised to abhor sleaze, early instruction kicked in. She turned the man away. There is purpose in a bribery. She adds something to that experience.
If you're giving me something ahead of supplies, first you're trying to compromise me. And then in compromising me, I probably will not be able to speak up if that supply went wrong, you know. And I clearly just remember my dad saying to me, your name and your integrity is far more important than affluence. We probably heard that at least every week in my house.
We turned the cameras to get others' views about the Ajani persona.
I speak about my boss, Dr. Magdalene Ajani, a model, an integrity personified. I consider it a privilege to work with her. Okay, I am from the private sector where things are done differently with due respect to civil servants. It was almost like a case of no hope until I came across her. She works better than a man, equal to the task at all times, always ready. The nation needs her. She's a woman on assignment. She works as if she's working for God and not for man. I do not want anybody to preach gospel or whatever to me. Look at her, learn from her. Let's do it the right way. The country could be turned around again and again. With Dr. Magdalene Ajani, there's a future for Nigeria.
Two things stand out for me about her. One is she loves God. And so she's very conscious of her ways. She's somebody who has the desire to please God in anything that she's doing. And I think that is part of the reason why she's so committed and diligent in whatever she does, because just as the Bible has said, whatever we are doing, we should do as if God is our direct supervisor. So she works like God is her direct supervisor and not for a human master. And the other thing that stands out is her integrity. And I think that still has a bearing with her love for God and the desire to please God. I am aware of situations where, as a permanent secretary, beautiful carrots have been dangled in front of her to compromise in one way or the other. But she refused them because of her love for God and the desire to please God, and also her love for this country. Because, she believes that if projects are to be done for the sake of the country, by the time you compromise and collect bribes here and there, then you have no local standing to hold whoever responsible to do a proper job. And so, I know that she has held that up all through up to this point. And I pray that God will bless her and bless her children in Jesus' name.
Once again, here is Mrs. Ajani on a humble beginning.
Not only President Jonathan Goodluck that went to school without slippers. I went to Army Children's School, Maiduguri, with bare feet. With bare feet. I have the pictures. I used to talk to my kids about it. And they look at me and just feel, Mom, hey, that couldn't have happened. We're in a century where a child will even tell you, I don't want to wear canvas, I want to wear sandals to school and all that. They have options. I didn't have an option. And it was so amazing for me. One day I went back home to my parents' house and I saw my picture in my starched Army Children's School uniform with my bare feet and my friends. And I brought that picture home and I showed to my kids, and the four of them were weeping. Mom, we never believed you. Wow, this is you? Of course, they took a shot of it to keep it in their system. But I can tell you what that did to my kids. The idea of entitlement for a driver to take them out started changing.
Mrs. Ajani says her humble and godly life would always be rewarded.